Hi guys, it's Circle M. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to take a look at the MilTec Mini Pack Standard 2-man tent. I paid about $50 for this tent, and I recommend that you don't pay more than $50 for this tent because in my experience with it, this is more of a casual tent instead of a serious use tent. That'll make more sense here in a second when we go outside and set it up, but I'll unpack it for you and show you what you get. It's relatively compact for the amount of space that it has, and it's not too heavy either. According to the label, it's 1,600 grams or 1.6 kilograms. Let's unpack it and see what we get on the inside. Inside the package, you'll get the tent, instructions, the tent poles, and some tent stakes. An interesting discrepancy that I found when reading the directions is that here it describes that you are going to get 2 large tent poles and 2 small tent poles. But when we actually look at the tent poles that are included, there were only 2 large tent poles. I don't know if that's a typo. They misused the instructions from another tent. I don't know whether that's just me, but I did find that interesting. Additionally, a personal item of note on these tent pole designs, I think their attachment system to the tent is flawed, which will make more sense when we go outside and set it up, but it comes with these little rubber caps that are supposed to go over the spikes on these poles in order to help prevent leaks from rain. It'll make sense here in a second when we set it up, but in all of my searching, I never did find the 2 small tent poles that they described, so it's just going to be the 2 large ones. The large tent poles use this little spring here, and they attach to each other just like that. There is nothing to stop you from pulling it apart. Inside the smaller bag, you will get 8 of these guy lines, and you will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tent stakes, although you only need 4 to be able to set the tent up if you're going for a minimalist approach. A design note for the tent is that the tent itself, when folded up, is shorter than the tent poles, which kind of makes for awkward packing, that you put the tent and the stakes and the poles all in the same protective bag, and you have a weird lump sticking out of the end, like you may have noticed in the beginning of the video. I suppose you could try folding the tent differently to make it long and skinny, but as you can see, the tent itself is actually not very large at all. So let's take this outside, set it up, and we'll see what it looks like. When you get the tent, you're going to get it in this rolled up little ball. You can see that it unfolds pretty easily. In its fully unfolded fashion, it is a touch over 6 feet long. I'm 6'2". It stretches for a little bit more, so there is enough room inside for a regular sized person to stretch out without any problems. You can see on the width that it is under 6 feet wide. I guess it's about 5.5 internally, so you're going to be a little snug if you're trying to put yourself and all your gear in there. Let me show you how to set it up. It's not very complicated. First, we're going to put a tent stake in each of the corners. Then we're going to go inside. We're going to set the poles in, and we're done. I like the fact that this is a really, really fast tent to set up. Additionally, the bottom is a good durable material. I did a review on that other tent that I have, that hot tent that does not have a very durable bottom. This is much thicker, closer to a tarp. The disadvantages to the tent I'll show you after we set it up. So let's get it done. talk about the disadvantages of the tent and why I think you shouldn't pay more than $50 for this tent. It would work as a casual outing tent, but I wouldn't use it for anything serious. Number one is the tendency of the tent to want to sag due to the design of the poles. Even with the guy lines at full tension, it has a propensity to sag whenever it experiences any kind of disturbance, and putting tension on it in order to get it flat on the top is difficult. I think if it were experiencing windy conditions, that would make this problem much worse. But it is what it is. Another item of note is this flap on the bottom for ventilation, where you have the mesh to the inside of the tent. That would be nice in the summer to help you get a breeze come through, but the problem is if you want to seal this, there is no way to seal it for inclement weather or extreme cold weather where you want to keep heat inside the tent. Finally, this is where you attach these guy lines to help stake the tent out, and I have a feeling that's going to provide structural problems, even though this is double stitched here, just because you're now putting tension on an odd part of the tent right where it connects to this mesh. I don't like this pole design because it lends itself to structural problems. You can see how every time I push on it, it lends itself to collapsing that tent. You can see that sag got worse. So if you were setting this up in windy conditions, it wouldn't take much for this to create problems. And you also run the risk of kicking it while you're inside the tent. That'll make more sense once we go inside and look at it. Additionally, because the pole pushes through the top of the tent, that makes a water ingress point. This little rubber gasket is supposed to help with that, but it doesn't, again, inspire a lot of confidence for me for that risk. The toggles that tie onto this tent are pretty crummy, and they have a tendency to slip, so you'll probably just end up tying knots in it in order to keep it secure, but it's not fantastic. These tent stakes are also a little thin. They're very easy to bend if you're being rough on the tent. There is also no exit door on the back. You get one door in and out of this tent, so I would have preferred to have one on both sides, both for ventilation and for safety and escape. Here, you do have a miniature little vestibule that you can run this rope through, or another one of your toggles to pull it out to give yourself a slight shade from the sun or the rain that comes into this tent, but it's so small it's basically ineffective, so I didn't find it to be super useful. The door is only a 1/2 door, so you do have an internal mesh door that you can use. You have the regular door. Your tie is here on the outside, and then you have two ties internally. So you have one that's on the inside of the door itself that you can use to tie it out of the way, and you have one on the inside of the mesh if you want to tie the entire door up and out of your way. You'll notice the pole is right here next to the door, so this definitely increases the chances of you bumping into it whenever you get in or out of the tent. You can see I made my sag even worse by coming over here and messing with it. It's just not a great way of doing the tent, in my opinion. Here on the inside of the tent, you can see that you have decent space. The sag in the roof could create problems if you're using this in snow or heavy rain. You can see the vent will allow air to escape. You do have a single internal pocket, but due to the placement of the pole being straight in the center, I do think you are at risk if you thrash in your sleep of knocking this thing over and unfortunately collapsing the tent. Final closing thoughts. If you can get this tent for at or under $50, I think you're getting a pretty good deal. This is something that I would use on a more casual outing, like if I was going to go to the state park overnight or maybe camp in the backyard. I think that's kind of the target demographic for this tent. I don't think it would hold up under more serious use. My gripes with the pole design and placement, as well as the fact that it has a tendency to sag when it's disturbed, kind of keep it out of that more serious use category, as well as the fact that you can't change the ventilation on the side. Maybe there's a chance that MilTec will see this. They'll implement a few design changes, like adding another door to the back and changing the design for the tent poles. Who knows? Crazier things have happened. I hope this video was helpful to you. You can make an informed decision about buying this tent. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time.